The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the WFDSS Refresher for Agency Administrators. I'm Annie Benoit, currently detailed with the Wildland Fire Management Research Development and Application Group. Presenting today, we have Tammy Parkinson, Lead Fire Application Specialist with the RD&A. Diane Rao, Fire Technology Transfer Specialist with the RD&A, and Tanya Opperman, Lead Fire Application Specialist. You should know this webinar is being recorded, and we'll post it to our website when we're done. And if you need a 508 compliant version of the recording, please contact us. Also, you'll receive an auto-generated email tomorrow from GoToWebinar that indicates you attended this webinar. We don't send out individual emails to attendees, so be sure to check for that email tomorrow. If you haven't already entered your PIN, please do so now. This helps us manage the call better by connecting your phone. And if you have any questions you haven't already submitted to us, you can ask a question by typing it in the questions box as shown here next to the yellow arrow. We'll monitor this throughout the call and try to address each question during the question and answer sessions in the middle and at the end of the presentation. You can also raise your hand so that we can unmute your speaker and you can ask us a question directly. Next, you'll notice two documents we've uploaded for your future reference. You can access and download these below the questions window we just referenced. The first document includes several web links and information we refer to in today's presentation. The second document contains information regarding available WFDSS analysis and decision support. So let's review today's agenda. We know your time is valuable, so we've organized this webinar to cover some basics in the first half hour. The second part of the call will be 20 to 30 minutes in order to watch a WFDSS demonstration of features that you can use to gain big picture situational awareness to support your rationale. The rationale, of course, is where the agency administrator, in his or her own words, explains why this decision is being made, and it's a required component of a published WFDSS decision. So let's go ahead and get started with Tammy Parkinson.
Hello. For those of you that need a walkthrough of all WFDSS tabs and information needed for a decision, please visit our website and watch the videos from last year. The video on the left walks through all of the tabs and what to put in each one and explains some of the decision tools. The video on the right explains the risk management process, reviews past decisions, and explains the role of an agency administrator along with changes that have been made into the WFDSS interface. The WFDSS interface has not changed since last year. This year, our webinar highlights resources that can help you with the content for your decision. Last year's videos are still valid. An easy way to get to the decision support content of our website, including these videos, is to click on the link from the WFDSS homepage. Just type in WFDSS in your browser and this page should come up. Note at the top of the slide, the address on the left is the WFDSS homepage and the address on the right is the WFMRDA page. Click on the analysis decision content. There's a bit of a delay here. I'm going to wait till it catches up. Click on the analysis and decision content link indicated here by the red arrow. This will take you directly to the decision support content on our web page. From here, you can locate our line officer resources, where you can find the videos I showed on the previous slide. To be clear, if you see the WFDSS flames in the upper left corner, you're on the WFDSS page. If you see the triangle, you're on the Wildland Fire Management RD&A page. Let's talk more about what you can find on the Line Officer Resources section. As a line officer, one thing to keep in mind is the alignment among all the planning products that you have for strategic direction on the fire being managed. Most relevant land and resource management plan direction should automatically be incorporated into your WFDS decision when you have an ignition or draw planning area. This is the information you should use when developing incident-specific objectives, and we'll talk more about these objectives later. When you write the delegation of authority, it is best if you do not repeat the strategic direction or objectives that you wrote in the WFDS. This is because the WFDS decision can change or the delegation can change. On a large fire, these documents can easily get out of alignment, so they actually say very different things about what you want to do with the fire. It is best if the delegation is as simple as possible, authorizing control of the fire and pointing to the direction in WFDS. The same goes for leader's intent. The leader's intent may have information about how you want incident management team to conduct themselves over a course of an incident, but this really doesn't have anything to do with the strategy of the fire. If you have guidance for the team in terms of HR issues or frequency of communication, put that in the leader's intent letter. Or maybe you can skip this altogether. It's not a national requirement to have a leader's intent letter. Finally, it is not your job to create objectives for the IAP, but you should review it and note whether you believe the actions being taken are in alignment with the overall land management plan and strategic direction you set forth in WFDS. If not, it's time to have a conversation with the incident management team. The Line Officer Resources page has some tools to help you do this. There is a Delegation of Authority template, a Leader's Intent template, and also a Briefing Package template to help you assemble necessary information in order to in-brief a team during what is typically a hectic time. Remember, although WFDS is a requirement, there are a lot of tools in the system designed to help you make your decision. Tanya, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
All right, thanks, Tammy. In 2014, the Director of Fire and Aviation Management for the Forest Service asked our group to look at how incident objectives were written in WFDS. And his concern was that we're spending millions of dollars and exposing firefighters with objectives that give little indication that the unit had really taken a look at a particular fire. Some of the objectives that he saw in WFDS were keep the fire small or firefighter safety is the first priority. And these types of objectives don't really give information to the incident commander about how to determine the appropriate tactics. In fact, these objectives could apply to any fire, anywhere. So the term objectives is used a lot, and there are several kinds of objectives, but what we're talking about here are the incident objectives that guide the development of the course of action of the fire. The incident objectives are typed into WFDS for every incident, and they're not meant to be boilerplate. As the agency administrator, it's your responsibility to make sure that incident objectives relay clear leader's intent, are aligned with the LRMP, are relatively few in number, we suggest 5 or fewer, that they do not conflict with one another, that they indicate specificity, such as what, where, when, and why, and they give an overall sense of priority. And we know this is not always an easy task. Now, we looked at some examples just to show you what we're talking about. And an original statement objective that we saw in WFDS was something like protect forest infrastructure and assets. Again, that could be applied on almost any fire. And a way you could reconstruct that to be more specific and show that you actually looked at this particular fire would be to say, protect Johnson Cabin, the Lakeside Comms Tower, the comms site and Hilltop Ridge to prevent loss of highly valued assets and critical comms equipment. This really shows that you've looked at the specifics on that fire. Now, another example, keep fire east of Antelope Road. An improved version of that would be do not engage fire west of Antelope Road because unexploded ordnance are present in this area. Now keep in mind, these are real objectives in WFDS on real fires that we looked at, and it would be important to relay to your IC that that situation exists so that the IC doesn't come up with alternate tactics. And in fact, maybe this isn't even an objective, it's more of a requirement, but nevertheless, it illustrates the point that you need to be specific. And finally, control fire at smallest possible size. This is probably the one we see the most, and it might be better to be more specific, and in this case, say, limit fire intensity to avoid crown fire in the municipal watershed to protect water quality. This gives the IC or ops a chance to develop alternate tactics or strategies, such as maybe burning out at a low fire intensity and still achieve the objective. So how do you get from vague objectives to meaningful ones? After numerous interviews and looking at specific real WFDSS decisions, we came up with some guidance that we think could help agency administrators craft better objectives. So this document's available on our website. It's also available in the links sheet that was attached to the webinar. And it's organized to help you evaluate the wording in your own incident objectives to make sure it's as clear as possible. So let's look at the columns here. We've got just a category designation just to help keep things organized in this matrix. But then here's the core of the incident objective. Do what, at where, when, because why. And so, for example, if we look at this first one in pink, do what? Protect the historic OTO Dude Ranch. Where? At the head of Clear Creek. There's no when associated with this, but let's say you had an example where Labor Day was coming up and it was important for you to keep a campground open or access open or outfitter and guide camps open. You might want to say prior to Labor Day here, but it's not always necessary. And then why? Because this is a highly valued national historic landmark. And then there's some more corresponding language here to help you get some context as to why this specific incident objective was written the way it was. So we gave some corresponding course of action language and then some interpretation notes. And this document is about 3 pages with about 15 or 20 examples of how to write better objectives. And so it's a good thing to take a look at and see if it can help you out this summer. You can find it at this place on our website, or like I said, it's at the link provided. So switching gears a little bit, let's talk about things that are relevant to the course of action. We could all use some help in describing where fire is potentially beneficial if our management direction allows, or at least where it isn't harmful. And this table is just an Excel spreadsheet that we developed as a beta tool for assessing fire effects on an incident, no matter what the strategy is for the fire. And it can be used to brief the IC or the ops group about what is at risk and whether or not you care that the fire reaches that value or what type of fire reaches that value. So the first column is just a description of the value. And here we see things like a cedar grove, a wilderness area, a historic cabin. The actual list on this fire had about 35 items, and it was a 15,000 acre complex. So next is the unit's priority for those values, and these priorities are relative to one another for that particular fire. So the line officers got together and prioritized the values to express to the incident management team how important it was to take action if fire was going to threaten these particular things. And then there's some susceptibility notes in the third column to remind us about what makes that valuable actually vulnerable to fire. Now the next 3 columns, the yellow, orange, and red columns at the top of the page, they show what kind of fire we can predict with our fire behavior tools and whether the unit thinks that that type of fire is acceptable for these resources. So we can see, if we look at surface fire, that it's acceptable for all the resources except the historic trapper's cabin, because the cabin can't withstand any type of fire. Now the cedar grove shows acceptable surface fire, but undesirable passive fire. From an ecological perspective, the fire probably wouldn't damage the cedars, but from a social political perspective, the line officer wasn't willing to accept the chance that it would. So this undesirable label was put here by the line officer to clearly indicate her leader's intent. And then the next column is the actual fire behavior that was predicted the next operational period for the fire. So we can see that really the only place we were expecting ops to start making a plan was the trapper's cabin. Finally, the last column tracks when it's time to take action. And here, most of these things were already under current operations, but management action point 10 was the point at if the fire breached that MAP, then we were going to have to go ahead and take action on to protect the cabin. So that's kind of a complicated process, and it's not meant to illustrate how you as a line officer might sit down and fill out a spreadsheet like that. But you can ask your folks that are working on the fire, or your fire ecology staff, or your resources staff to use this process to help you and the incident management team understand where fire isn't acceptable and when to engage the fire. And to do that, you can find our example severity spreadsheet that I just showed you. It's a fillable spreadsheet, and there's also a corresponding video that you can use. And I would encourage you to consider using this process even before fire season starts. And so with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Tammy, and she's going to talk about the line officer desk guide.
Okay, I'll wait till it comes back up on the screen. Okay, another useful tool available for Line Officer Resources page of our RD&A website is the Line Officer Desk Reference Guide. It was developed in coordination with the Forest Service National Line Officer Team. There's no new information within the guide. It's merely a reference tool to help point line officers in the right direction if you need to drill down into policy, training, or the Red Book. If you already have a copy, you may want to reload it or re-download it because we've updated it for 2017. We've made it 508 compliant, doing the screen tips, hyperlinks, alt text, etc., updated various web links, materials from the 2017 Red Book, updated materials from the 5120, 5130 guidance, includes information on who to contact if you need additional help, and then also included some verbiage in there with regard to the delegation of authority, leader's intent, and briefing package documents that were developed from beta last year. Tanya, you want to go to the flyer slide? Oops. Okay, there are different ways to get help. You can click the WFDS feedback button on the top right corner of the WFDS screen if you've logged in. There are question marks in WFDS that bring you to the context-sensitive help, or you can call us for help with the tools to help you find an analyst, run fire behavior, or we've provided this flyer in the webinar materials as a reference. That's one of the documents that Annie, we sent out. And it can also be found on our RD&A site. The RD&A team is on call every day of the year to provide incident support. Whether you can't figure out how to publish your decision, or you need to request an additional analysis, or you're trying to figure out values at risk, or you need on-site support, you can call us. Now we're going to open it up for some question and answer.
Okay, so if you guys have any questions right now, feel free to click the hand raise or go ahead and type it in the questions box, and we'll see it on our end and we can address it. There's no questions so far, so we'll give it just a few minutes. Okay, we have one coming in asking how to get the check transfer link where the spreadsheet is. And I believe that that is on the RD&A website. And the link should be included in the web links document attached to this webinar.
And while we're waiting for another question to come in, this is Tanya. I would just say that if anyone does download that spreadsheet and have any feedback for us, get in touch with the RD&A or get in touch with me, because it's one of those tools that if we can figure out the best way to utilize it, we could build it into an automated interface and make it a little more slick than just an Excel spreadsheet in the future.
Okay, well, we'll have another question and answer session at the end. So we have one more that came in. Last year, we struggled a bit with the incident team regarding allowing fire on the landscape in places while suppressing in others. Do you have suggestions on good objectives for managed fires? I'll leave that one for Tanya, probably.
Yeah, if you do go to that spreadsheet that we have, we do have some objectives in there, and I will say those are the most difficult ones for us to write because people often get a little bit more twitchy. I'm not sure what the scientific term is there, but talking about using fire on a fire with multiple objectives can get a little difficult. So some things, I'm just trying to pull it up here to have an example. So we came up with an example for using fire to achieve land management objectives, and it is in that document I referenced. For example, utilize fire in leafy tree drainage to promote aspen regeneration as described in the LRMP. All types of fire are acceptable. Another one that we wrote as an example was utilize natural fire as much as possible in the Aldo Leopold Wilderness and roadless area north of Garden River to enhance wilderness character and fire-dependent ecosystems as described in the LRMP. So then for the corresponding courses of action that would sort of follow from those objectives, you know, we had things like monitoring fire spread, contain it if it's expected to leave the wilderness, utilize a READ, a resource advisor, establish operational trigger points, things like that. So I think it can be done. It's you know, that messaging that we have to do as fire managers when we have a fire that we're suppressing on one flank and we are utilizing for resource benefit on another flank has proven to be pretty tough for us. But I think there's ways to do it if we're clear about our objectives.
Thanks, Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not getting any more questions. So we'll go ahead and table the Q&A session until the end. And we'll go ahead and move on to Diane, who will do a WFDSS demonstration for us.
Hi, everyone. This is Diane Rao. And thanks, Annie. We have 5 WFDSS features to demo today that you can use to help support your rationale statements. We'll discuss how to use fire behavior analysis products to get your questions answered. We'll talk about the values inventory, discuss what it is and how it can support your decisions, and how you can use it to include local values in it as well. We'll talk about the model values at risk to help you determine what's out there and what's threatened. We'll talk about the estimated firefighter evacuation map layer, what it tells you, and how you can use it. And last, I'll show you the Predictive Services Significant Fire Potential Outlook. I'll tell you what it is and where you can locate it. We've chosen to include these items because they're underutilized and they're misunderstood sometimes. And sometimes folks just don't know they exist. So there will be the second open question and answer session, like Annie said, at the end. But feel free to type in questions that may come up during the demo so that we're sure to address them. There are so many tools in WFDSS, and it's tough to understand the differences between them all. So we're here to tell you that it's okay if you don't understand them all, because your job is to develop the right questions that those tools can answer. There are 4 fire behavior models available in WFDSS, and each one serves up a very different purpose. Whatever question you can dream up, there's a model to provide an output to give you an answer. I mean, within reason, of course. So this table shows general information about the models, and it's available both in the Line Officer Appendix and on the WFDSS homepage in the Modeling Learning Resources section. What do good questions look like? Questions can be related to fire growth, threat and value, weather, be it current, forecasted, or historical, and/or time. Some examples of questions are, when will the fire reach the historical woods cabin? In this case, fire progression and time are the concerns, so short-term or near-term would be used. What are the chances the fire will leave the wilderness area in 2 weeks' time? When chances and probabilities are involved over time, FS Pro is the correct tool to use. Strong southern winds are forecasted the next 2 days. How will they affect fire growth? In this case, there's confidence in the immediate weather forecast, and the concern is short-term, so short-term fire behavior would be suitable. Fire growth to the south and east is acceptable. Is there any chance the fire could burn north? In this case, chances and probabilities are involved, so FS Pro is the correct tool again. Any degree of crown fire, both passive and active, will threaten owl habitat. Is crown fire expected with those forecasted high winds? Questions specific to fire behavior can be answered with basic fire behavior. It's quick to generate and provides you with fire behavior characteristics and potential for any spot on the landscape. And last, how long do I have to live with this fire? In this case, the term function in Fire Family Plus gives you an idea of where you are in the fire season with regards to a season-ending event. So as you can see, you can come at questions from just about any angle. An analyst looks at the specifics and chooses the appropriate tools. When you've created your questions, request fire behavior assistance or employ someone to do it for you. A handy fire behavior request form is available on the WFDSS homepage that outlines some of the good-to-know information that an analyst will need. Our next topic is values inventory. What values are out there? A values inventory is generated when a planning area is drawn or a fire behavior model is run, and it can be accessed from map displays in WFDSS. The values inventory contains a list of known values at a minimum that intersect the planning area or the modeled output. Understanding what it contains can help inform development and prioritization of incident objectives. A values inventory generated from a planning area is also included in the decision automatically. Values in the values inventory are derived from nationally sourced databases such as INFRA or FNIS. Some folks dismiss the values inventory and don't think it contains enough data pertinent to their unit or their decisions, so they don't spend much time looking at it. So the use of other unit shapes is a good way to remedy this, to ensure that local unit-specific values data are spatially represented and available for inclusion in values inventories. So this information can be loaded by a unit's data manager at any time and will ensure that applicable unit-specific values information will be included in the values inventory for your next decision and your next incident. Here's another unit shape example for the North Fire on the Cibola National Forest last year. In their unit fire planning map layers, highlighted in orange on the left here, you can see that Mexican spotted owls and goshawks are represented in other unit shapes, and the shapes display as pink polygons in the map display. When the values inventory is generated, the spotted owl and goshawk values are included. You can see that 2,500 acres, approximately, of spotted owl core and packs intersect the planning area. When you have multiple values listed, it helps with comparison and prioritization of CV's acreages. If you're wondering if your unit has other unit shapes loaded into WFDSS and they're selected for inclusion in the values inventory, ask your unit's WFDSS data manager to check this out for you. If your unit doesn't have other unit shapes, recruit your data manager to load this local values data into WFDSS as part of your pre-season planning. In the last example, the values inventory was derived from a planning area. In this example, it's derived from a near-term fire behavior output. You can access it through the layer switcher for a run that has been accepted as complete by an analyst, or from the results tab. This type of values inventory is different, as it tells you how many acres of a value are in the path of fire spread during the model simulation period. Unlike values inventory generated from a planning area, the model values inventory won't populate in a decision unless you choose to manually add it. The values at risk, the modeled values at risk inventory generated by an FS program is another type of values inventory that can be accessed, like the others, through the layer switcher for a completed run or from the results tab for the run. Like the last example, it won't populate into decision unless you manually add it. How this list is different is that it provides a probability that values will be affected based on where they fall in that modeled output. The highlighted column represents acreages for values that fall in the light blue area or the 5 to 19% footprint. For our other unit shaped example, there's a 5 to 19% chance that 124 acres of spotted owl core and packs will be affected by fire directly during the simulation period. The last column provides another source of good information. This is expected values. Expected values is a weighted average of how many acres burned during the simulation period. Expected value is outcome times probability. So here, 15.5 acres of spotted owl core and packs are expected to burn during the 2-week simulation period. This is a really useful metric, and to better understand how it's calculated, if those 124 acres in the 5 to 19% column fell into the higher probability, 80 to 100% category, those 15.5 acres would be much higher. In fact, it would be 116 acres because they would be weighted by that higher probability. So it's just another useful comparison tool when considering risk trade-off. Our next demo item is the estimated ground evacuation time map layer in WFDSS. So this data layer spatially displays transport time in hours from every point within the continental US to the nearest hospital. Green and yellow represent the shorter transport times. Orange and red get longer. Red, as you can see, is more than 6 hours. So the intent of this information is to initiate discussions regarding risk tolerance and mitigation as it pertains to firefighter safety at the earliest possible point in the decision process. So it's for information purposes only. And it's not intended to deter resource deployment to any location, but instead encourage thoughtful decisions about the risks being transferred to firefighters and how to mitigate those risks. So the next time you have a fire on your unit, check this map layer out. It's located in the fire environment and safety map layers. As you can see in the layer switcher, highlighted in orange on the left. Use it to help inform risk trade-offs, your rationale for an incident, and or to start a dialogue with your fire managers. Our last demo item today is the Predictive Services Significant Fire Potential 7-Day Outlook. It's delivered to you directly in WFDSS and provides decision support information about fire weather that helps you anticipate significant fire activity. The Outlook is delivered 2 ways. Here, it's located in the fire weather and danger map layers and delivered spatially from a map display. So I've clicked the legend beside it to display additional information. You can also click the help icon beside the legend or in the upper right-hand corner to read more about it. From the info sub-tab over here on the left, you can also click the link highlighted in orange to display in a graphical form. To do it this way, you can use the eye tool to click on any point in the map to generate the significant fire potential outlook for that point. So it's another way to view it. Again, just another source of information to help inform your decisions. So that's it for the demo. Let's open it up for open questions and answers. Annie, you want to take it from here?
Sure. So now is a great time to go ahead and type in your questions. I'm beginning a few as we move throughout the presentation that we've been able to address. So go ahead and raise your hand or type in your question if you have anything you'd like to comment on or further clarification. So we have one coming in asking how many of these tools that are available are usable in Alaska?
That's a really good question. I myself have not worked in Alaska on assignments, and so I haven't directly used them myself. we can double check those and get back to you. Tanya or Tammy, do you have any information have you experience using these two tools in Alaska?
Well, all of the fire behavior models are definitely available. The only one I'm not sure about would be the predictive services maps.
That's what I was thinking. I'm pretty certain the estimated firefighter evacuation layer is in there. And like you said, all the fire behavior models are in there, and the values inventories that I talked about that go with those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've had another one come in asking, how long does it typically take to get those special reports from predictive services?
The special reports, can we elaborate on that?
If that's in reference to, like when it will show up in WFDSS, those interactive map overlays that geospatially tell you what your fire predictions are, and predictions isn't the right word, but what the outlook is for, winds, lightning, etc., dryness, etc. Those come in daily and it's a 24-hour product, and WFDSS holds it for 7 days at a time, so you can click ahead for 7 days and see what the outlook is for 7 days out, 6 days out, 5 days out.
Okay, we've had one hand raised, and I will get to that in just a second. We've had one other question come in wanting to confirm that any other unit layer will automatically be tallied in the values inventory if it's asked for. Is that correct?
Repeat that one more time.
This person's wanting to confirm that any other unit layer will automatically be tallied in the values inventory if it's asked for.
Oh, so the other unit shapes I was talking about, you can use those to capture local unit-specific information. So your data manager can upload those anytime. When they upload those into the data management tab, there's a column called values. And when you select the checkbox in that values column, those values represented by those shapes automatically become available for your values inventory. So it's possible to have other unit shapes loaded into the system, but not have that checkbox selected. So if you want those values to appear in the values inventory, you got to make sure the checkbox is selected. Does that help?
I think so. Okay, so we have one hand raised so far, Sherry Schwenk, and she is asking about the fire evacuation map. So Sherry, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Sherry?
Yes.
Hey, do you want to go ahead with your question?
Oh, I was asking how the fire evacuation map is developed, and also is it accessible anytime?
It is accessible anytime. It was developed, so the transport time is walking speeds with consideration for slope and vegetation, and then transportation on roads according to the speed limits. So it's fascinating how it was put together. And on the WFDSS homepage, there is a data link. And so there's specifics about the map layer and how it was developed. But that's how it was basically generated. Vegetation, slope, and then those walking and driving speeds. Yeah, so definitely check it out. On the homepage, the data tab, and then data management specifics.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the Park Service developed that layer in response to the firefighter who died of a chainsaw injury out in the field when they couldn't extract him in time. And it is a wall-to-wall layer, so it includes all lands, even though it's a Park Service developed layer. It's pretty cool.
Right. It doesn't take into account any delays in, that you may have in the field if you stop to, re-coordinate things, or if there's a delay of an ambulance getting to a deployment site or something. There are some human error that's not incorporated in it. So if you can imagine, it's steady transport speed.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sherry. Okay. Any other questions? It looks like I'm not getting any new ones.
So it looks like some people were having trouble with the links in the document, and I guess we just downloaded it and tested it, and it was working for us. So we're wondering if maybe the server recycled at the time the links were clicked, and maybe they didn't open for you. If you do have trouble with the document, don't be afraid to ask us, and we'll find a way to get it to you if the one you downloaded isn't working for some reason. But maybe try again in a few minutes with those links.
A few more questions. I'm wondering how soon the presentation will be posted to the website.
That might be for Tammy.
Yeah, probably by the end of next week we can try. It's a matter of getting it converted over to a uploadable format. So give us a week and we'll try and get it up.
Okay. And then any advice on how to best define a planning area? Big box versus ridge lines, holding features, that kind of thing.
This is Tanya. I can take that one. It really is up to you as a decision maker, and there are different ways to go about it. One is some people want to go small, because if you go small, you don't bring in the layers from maybe your neighboring agencies. Like if you have a little square BLM and your Forest Service, if you draw your box too big, you grab all their stuff and you don't think the fire is going to get there, and then you have all this stuff in WFDSS that you didn't want there. So there's a reason sometimes people want to draw the box a little smaller. But if you draw the box small and your fire is going to get out of the box, then you got to go and redraw the box. And if you redraw the box, you got to republish a decision. So then that is more work. If you draw your box too small and there's values outside of that box that you're trying to protect, and you're spending a bunch of money trying to protect those values and it's not showing in your decision, that's not good either. So to be honest, what I would like to see people do a little bit more is maybe use FS Pro to do maybe a 14-day run and see where that fire wants to go. If you were to take no action, where does that fire want to go? And then help guide you to draw your box. And I wouldn't spend a lot of time clicking along ridge tops and clicking along drainage bottoms. I mean, really, you just need to draw the box. The box is not a maximum manageable area. It's not the place where you're going to control the fire. It's not the place where you're going to take action. It's sort of your theater of operations. It's the place where you think all the activities you're planning for are going to take place in that planning period, which is usually, 7 to 14 days of planning ahead of time. So hopefully that answers it. People approach it in all different kinds of ways, which I'm sure is something you've noticed. I like to just draw a box.
Yeah, and this is Diane. I'll elaborate on that. WFDSS was designed to be a strategic decision-making tool, and so, anytime that fire leaves that planning area, you have to create a new decision, and sometimes you're creating new work for yourself that's not necessary. So, I am more inclining on the bigger side, just to sort of take advantage of that function of the application.
Okay, thanks. Give it a few more minutes here.
These are all great questions. Thank you. If you're sitting on any questions right now, likely somebody else is thinking the same thing. So we still have another 15 minutes. Not that we need to fill the airspace for that long, but if there's something that's in your pocket, go ahead and ask it, please. I think we'll all benefit from it.
Okay, I think that we can go ahead and wrap it up. I'm not getting any more questions. Thanks for that great input, though. So if you guys have any follow-up questions, feel free to give a call or shoot an email to the email or phone number listed on your screen. Thank you so much for your time today.
Stand by. We got a question.
Oh, okay.
So we've got somebody asking, is the values count in the values inventory clipped at the planning area? When you draw a planning area, that planning area and the shape it develops, the values inventory is clipped to that planning area. If you run near-term fire behavior, short-term fire behavior, or FS Pro, the values inventories or model values at risk inventory is clipped to the shape of the output itself. So hopefully that clarifies.
Hey, Annie, this is Tammy. I cleaned up a couple of those links in there. I'm going to repost that document. If folks want it, I'll stick it over again. I think there might have been some glitches with the HTTP versus HTTPS. Anyways, it's uploading right now. Grab it. You should be able to grab it now. It says it's ready to go.
Yep.
We have one more question that came in.
Yep.
Are cost estimates generated in WFDS ever compared to the actual cost of the fire? That's a tough one for us to answer. Well, Tanya, do you have input for this one?
I think the simple answer is no. You know, the cost that you put in there as a line officer about what you expect to spend for this course of action is one thing, and the actual costs being generated on the fire and all the cost reporting that you're getting out after the fire is a completely different thing. And if someone is going through at their region or unit and comparing what's in WFDS to what the actual cost of the fire is, because those fire costs don't come in for final until several months after the fact, then I haven't seen that information. I haven't seen those comparisons. So if that's happening, we're not doing it. That's probably something maybe being done at a regional level, if at all, I would guess.
Right. That's what I could say. You know, the estimated final fire cost. It's a required field in WFDS, but how it's used at the regional level or at any other level, I'm unsure of.
Okay. I see no more questions. So thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Annie.